November 18th, 1978, a day shrouded in darkness. A day when over 900 innocent lives were extinguished in the remote jungles of Guyana. This is a story of Jonestown, a tragedy born from blind faith, twisted propaganda, and the unyielding power of one man's vision. Stay tuned as we unravel how Jim Jones, a charismatic preacher turned manipulator, led his followers down a path of despair and mass suicide. Our story begins in the 1950s with a young preacher in rural Indiana. Jim Jones emerged with a message of hope and equality, a promise to bridge the divides of race and class in post-war America. His early sermons, filled with passionate rhetoric, won him followers among the marginalized communities. Jones didn't just preach, he captivated. By rejecting racial discrimination and speaking into the underdog, he built a following that would later fuel the rise of the People's Temple. However, behind the facade of progressive ideals lay a thirst for power and control, a theme that would echo through his every move. By the 1960s, Jones and his wife had relocated to California, where the People's Temple began to take shape. It wasn't long before his magnetic personality and big promises of a better life attracted a diverse crowd, from hopeful college students to middle-aged citizens seeking a community. His message was simple yet profound. Reject the corrupt ways of society and embrace a new way of living, a life free from prejudice and full of promise. But as his influence grew, so did his methods of control. The same techniques used in advertising and politics were repurposed to cement his authority. As Jenna Hill once observed in her harrowing memoir about Scientology, power and control often come dressed as salvation, a truth that echoes in the history of Jonestown. To understand how Jones led his followers to their doom, we must dissect the techniques he used to twist truth into a weapon of control. First, Jones used name-calling. These are propaganda techniques. He instilled fear by labeling dissenters and outsiders as enemies of the faith. He exploited the power of words, making people believe that anyone who questioned him was a sinner or a traitor. This tactic made division and silenced the opposition. Jones also used plain folks, another propaganda technique where he just presented himself as an ordinary man, a relatable figure who understood the struggles of everyday people. This allowed him to mask his manipulative behavior with humility and empathy. Jones also used card stacking. He controlled the narrative by presenting only the information that supported his claims. By filtering out any negative evidence, he created a distorted reality where his words were seen as the truth. Jones also used bandwagon. Perhaps the most insidious of all, the bandwagon effect made conformity seem like the only option. As Jones' supporters cheered him on, the pressure to join the collective belief became overwhelming, making it easier for the crowd to push out critical voices. Behind these tactics, Jones was a master of persuasion, using kairos, ethos, logos, and pathos to captivate and control. In moments of crisis, there was crucial moments where his followers were pushed to make irreversible decisions. His credibility and manipulated arguments worked in tandem with emotionally charged appeals to leave little room for doubt. Life within the People's Temple was a carefully constructed illusion of paradise. Members were drawn in by promises of equality, salvation, and a community that cared. But behind closed doors, the reality was far more sinister. Followers were coerced into giving up all their assets, selling their homes, abandoning their families, and committing their savings to the cult's offers. They were made to believe that any hint of individual desire could jeopardize the collective dream. For many, the appeal of belonging was irresistible. They had reached a point of uncertainty in their lives, feeling isolated, in need of direction. Jones exploited these vulnerabilities with ruthless efficiency, turning the desire for belonging into an instrument of control. Jonestown was seen as a revolutionary escape, a new beginning in the heart of Guyana. But the isolation that was supposed to be a sanctuary soon became the breeding ground for despair and negativity. Within the isolated compound, armed guards enforced strict obedience. Daily life was regimented, and dissent was met with swift, brutal punishments. The environment was one of constant surveillance and relentless pressure, a perfect storm for manipulation of already vulnerable souls. Jones staged public demonstrations of power, fake healings, orchestrated miracles to reaffirm his position as the sole savior. One of his most notorious acts involved having his own secretary pretend to be crippled, only to miraculously recover before the very eyes of everyone in the audience. This display was designed to instill both awe and fear, blurring the lines between salvation and manipulation. The spark that ignited the final tragedy was the visit of the US Congressman Leo Ryan. He had come to investigate disturbing reports of abuse and to give hope to those trapped in this nightmarish existence. However, his arrival set off a chain of events that Jones could no longer control. Before the congressman could leave with defectors, gunfire erupted, a scary prelude that the carnage was about to unfold. Orders were given and the compound transformed into a battlefield of betrayal and terror. In a final act of twisted loyalty, Jim Jones declared that the only escape from the world's corruption was through death. He orchestrated what he called revolutionary suicide by preparing cups of cyanide-laced flavor aid, a fatal cocktail meant to seal their fate. With tearful eyes and trembling hands, parents were forced to poison their own children, while others were injected or shot if they dared to resist. In that dark moment, every life was snuffed out in the name of a false promise, a promise that had become a death sentence. The numbers are staggering. 918 souls lost in a single horrific event. But beyond the statistics, Jonestown is a stark reminder of how the human desire for belonging can be exploited by those in power. It forces us to ask, how can we protect ourselves from modern forms of propaganda and manipulation? Propaganda is not confined to history. It lurks in every corner of modern society. The techniques Jones employed, from name-calling to the bandwagon effect, are still used today, often more subtly in politics, media, and even advertising. The tragedy of Jonestown is not just a relic of the past, it is a lesson for our future. Survivors of Jonestown and scholars continue to explore the dark psychology behind cults. Their accounts remind us that while the methods may evolve, the vulnerabilities of the human spirit remain constant. In every era, there are those who seek to exploit trust using charisma and propaganda to bend minds to their will. Today, as we navigate a world filled with so much information, the legacy of Jonestown stands as a warning. It challenges us to question everything, even those who claim to be saviors. As you reflect on this tragic episode, consider how the thirst for belonging can sometimes lead to dangerous paths. In an era of digital manipulation, staying informed and vigilant is more critical than ever. The tragedy of Jonestown is a reminder of the fragile line between faith and being a fanatic. It teaches us that power, when left unchecked, can lead to unspeakable horror. If you liked this video, hit that like button, comment down below what you think of the Jonestown incident and how cults act using propaganda techniques. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.